flow.
Welcome to episode 151 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. We are in the dead of summer. There's nothing going on right now across the National Hockey League, but that doesn't mean that this isn't going to be a fantastic episode, because we are going to do a way too early Eastern Conference preview. We are going to break down the Atlantic Division, the Metropolitan Division. We are going to give you our thoughts on where we think the Leafs are going to finish, who the best team in the Eastern Conference is right now, and it's going to be great. And then probably one of our next few episodes, we will do the exact same thing for the Western Conference. And who knows, maybe while we're recording, the Leafs are going to trade Mitch Marner. You never know. So stay tuned until the very end, because I promise this is going to be a great summer episode of GFP. But before we get into all that, it is time to officially welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing today, man?
Anthony Bruno, as always, there is no place I would rather be than recording a pod with you. I know it's boring. It's like boring podcast talk to talk about weather, but you guys got some shit show weather in Toronto going on, man. Did you lose power?
I didn't lose power, but our city is a complete shit show. There was flooding on the DVP.
Crazy.
Yeah, just a disaster. But actually, where I am, up in Woodbridge, it wasn't too bad. It was a lot worse in downtown Toronto.
Yeah, they were showing clips of Union Station being completely flooded and people just leaving their cars on the highway. Nuts, man. I mean, it's weird to think of that happening in Toronto. I mean, I don't remember anything like that happening in a major city in Canada. I mean, someone remind me if I don't recall. But crazy scenes, man. I mean, not to get negative, but everyone was okay. Like there were no fatalities or anything like that. I didn't hear anything about that.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
Yeah.
Based on what I've seen, I don't think anyone was seriously injured, although I could be wrong.
Mm.
Please let us know in the comments if I'm actually wrong about this. But yeah, thankfully nothing very serious happened. But yeah, a bit of a shit show over here for sure.
Mm.
All right, man. And you were okay in Ottawa?
Yeah, in
What's
Ottawa.
it going over there?
In buttfuck Ottawa, here we are. We're a fortress over here. But let's be honest here. You guys didn't lose power in Woodbridge because you have Italian electricians living in every house,
Exactly.
setting up some sort of
Best
fortress.
of the best in Woodbridge.
Yeah, you guys do it all, baby.
All right, man. Let's dig right into the hockey talk here. So as I said off the top of the show, our way too early Eastern Conference preview. Let's start with the Atlantic Division.
Of course.
So I don't think there's going to be a ton of changes, to be honest with you, at the top of the division. Spoiler alert. I think the top teams are still the top teams. I think the mid-tier teams are kind of still the mid-tier teams. And I think the shittiest teams in the Atlantic Division are still the shittiest teams in the Atlantic Division. Now, in saying that, it doesn't mean I think that the division is going to play out exactly as it did last season. And I will give you my full take on that. But I want to throw it to you first for your thoughts on the Atlantic Division and the Leafs, for that matter.
Okay, so I mean, I don't have a whole lot of change. I do have some like semi surprises. I don't think anything completely outlandish. So at the top of the division, winning the Atlantic Division, I have the forever annoying your Boston Bruins. I have the Bruins.
Wow, I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I'm done ever thinking Boston is going to get worse at any point. I really like Lindholm. I really like Zadorov. I think Swayman is an A+ goalie. They got the right coach. They have the right culture. So I'm going to finish. I'm going to say the standings finish with Boston at the very top. One below, I have your Toronto Maple Leafs. I think the Leafs are going to have a good season. I think the top, you know what? I think Toronto and Boston are going to kind of break away in that division a little bit. I don't know if either the team is a style where they're put up like between 115 and 120 points, but I can see them both flirting with 110. So I have Boston 1, Toronto 2, not far behind. Step below, I have Florida Panthers. They lost Stolars, who was, I mean, quote unquote, a backup, but had really good numbers. They lost Montour. They lost Ekman Larson. They lost Tarasenko. So on paper, they got worse. Full stop. ESPN did some sort of like data research thing where they showed on paper, based on their underlying numbers, who got better and who got worse. And Florida was one of the biggest drop-offs based on paper. But they still have enough in the tank with Paul Maurice and co. that I think they will finish third in the division in the regular season. So in the first round, the Toronto Maple Leafs will play the Florida Panthers, just as we all want, right? Why not? Let's do it again for some fun. After that, maybe I'm being a little overly bullish here on a certain team.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Oh, no, Bruno, we're not going there. We're not going there. And those who listen to the show regularly know what Bruno was referring to. So I'm not going to call it a man crush, but you know, when you get sort of a hockey crush on a player and you just love a certain player and you go to bed at night and get on your knees and pray that your team will get this player. I fucking love Lucas Raymond, man. I love Lucas Raymond. I think he showed so much at the end of the season last year. And the Red Wings went on that run.
Wait, hold on. I know why you like Lucas Raymond.
Why?
Because he's Swedish.
Well, I mean, sure. Yeah. I mean, I do
You
love
like every
Swedish.
Swedish player in the NHL.
Well, it doesn't stop at hockey players, Bruno. I drive a Volvo. For those who don't know me well, I married a Swedish girl, so blue and yellow, man. Best colors, blue and yellow. But I think Raymond's a sick player. I think Lyon's a good goalie. They get a full year of Patrick Kane. They essentially replace Perron with Tarasenko. Why not? Why not the Red Wings? Moritz Seider, 1 year older. So I have the Red Wings in the fourth spot, and I have them making the playoffs. Like I said, they went on that tear at the end to make it interesting. And sometimes you forget when a team doesn't end up making it, you forget how close they were. They missed on the tiebreaker, man, in Washington. Detroit was that close to making the playoffs. And I'm going to play a little insider here. I was talking to someone with some connections to the Detroit Red Wings.
Here we go. Here we go, folks.
And we're going to break we're going to break some ice here. I've heard, and it's actually weird. It feels weird to hear the words, but apparently Yzerman's really on the hot seat. Really on the hot seat. They're expecting a big improvement this year.
Wow.
So with that, I don't think he's going to sit around. I mean, they didn't go nuts in free agency, but if he can make a move, he's going to make a move to make his team better for the short term. So more reason to put Detroit in the fourth spot. In fifth, I have Tampa. They're still a really good team. I still fucking love the Tampa Bay Lightning. Losing Stamkos, I think, is an identity thing. So I think that will affect them more than people think it will. And his 40 goals that no one seems to remember.
But do you have them missing the playoffs, Lepore?
I have them still getting in.
Okay.
I have them still getting in. I just, again, sick team. And they very well could surprise me. And everyone who listens knows that both of us love John Cooper. But just 1 year older, 1 year, maybe a little checked out. And the Gensel thing, I mean, he's a good player, but again, they lost Stamkos' 40 goals. Had they just added Gensel and got rid of something else, I would have said, okay, here we go, Tampa. But I have them dropping a spot behind Detroit. Following now we're getting into the dog days of the Atlantic Division. Next up, I have the Ottawa Senators. I think the Senators will make a slight improvement this year. I do not think they will make the playoffs. Where I do think they'll finish is I think they'll kind of do what everyone expected them to do last year. Whereas, okay, they'll be competitive. They'll be over 500. I just haven't seen enough improvement from them in the defensive zone to think that they're going to make the playoffs. Allmark is, of course, an upgrade, but one of my favorite lines in hockey, save percentage is a team stat. So we're going to find out in a hurry if he's actually a solution for them. And to be fair, I mean, this is kind of, I'm not going to say something coming up that will totally expose the Ottawa Senators, but in Sen's world, and I live in the city, everyone knows that there's been a lot of blame on goaltending. It's just, we're good. We just have a terrible goalie. So it's an excuse because a goalie's a player. But I find sometimes fans say that because it is really just one player. It's one solution. So it's an easy thing to say, okay, we just need a goalie. Well, you got your fucking goalie. So
hold on. They thought they had a goalie last year.
But that's my point.
In Korpisalo, and that did not work out at all. And now they have Allmark, who appears to be a great goaltender based on what he did with the Boston Bruins. But now he's going from one of the best defensive teams in the league to one of the worst defensive teams in the league, quite honestly.
Bruno, and
so
the year before they got that, the year the Sens were coming on, they got Talbot, and everyone in the city was excited about that. So Talbot was a bust. Korpisalo, they paid to get the fuck out of here. Next up, we have Allmark. If it doesn't go well for Allmark, it's not even the question of anymore, like full stop of, is it the team or is it the goalie? No, it's the team. We've seen enough examples now. So I'm excited to see. I mean, if Allmark's good and whatever, and there's improvement there, I just don't think they've done enough to help the team defensively. So I do think they will have a better season. I have them in like the mid to high 80s in points. I just don't think they'll make the playoffs. Below that is Montreal, but Montreal is a weird one to me, man, because I'm not going to say, if Montreal like fights for a playoff spot, I won't be surprised. I think
really,
yeah,
you're that bullish on Montreal.
Well, I mean, I think they're going to be better. Last year they finished with 76 points. So can they improve 10 points? I think so. Slavkovsky, 1 year older, Caulfield and Suzuki, more mature. Their D's young, one more year. I can see them being competitive and maybe fighting for a playoff spot. That Slavkovsky deal, that's going to be one I think we're going to be really pissed about in a couple of years as fans of another team. Like, I don't understand why, and maybe because I'm polluted because I'm a Leafs fan. Like, if you're Slavkovsky, why would you sign that deal? Just the stability, like, I guess. But at the same time, it's like, well, you're really not believing in yourself, because by the time that contract's done, that's going to be like average player money we're talking about. Especially with the projection of the Caps
it kind of reminds me of, and he's definitely older than Slavkovsky, was Tage Thompson. Like, he had a breakout season, and then I want to say he signed for in the sevens, the mid sevens.
Yeah, and everyone thought
and last year he kind of took a step back.
Yeah.
So is it these guys just saying, hey, I want the security? You know, this is a tough league. Who knows how this is going to go over the next few years? Let me just take the money right now and then see what happens down the road.
Yeah, that is a good point, Bruno. Like, I do remember that Thompson deal. Everyone thought this is going to be the best contract in the NHL, and he's still a sick player. Actually, did you see that video? It's from a couple of years ago before he exploded. Austin Matthews was asked who is like the dirtiest, most like underrated hockey player. Dirty, I mean, as in really good player in the league, and didn't even breathe. He's like, Tage Thompson. And the reporter was like, really? And he's like, yeah, he practices with him, trains in the offseason. He's like, Tage Thompson is bananas. This guy's going to be a really good player, a lot of talent, but off topic. But Montreal, and then speaking of Tage Thompson, I have the Buffalo Sabres at the basement.
Wow, so you have the Sabres finishing dead last.
I have the Sabres
below the Montreal Canadiens.
I do. Buffalo, like, why? I mean, give me a reason. I don't know. Like, the Sabres are the opposite of what the Bruins are to me. I mean, you have to show me that you're going to be better, just like Boston. Like, I'm never going to believe they're going to be worse until I actually see it. And Buffalo didn't really do anything to make them significantly better. So I have the Sabres in the basement. And yeah, that's my wrap up on the Atlantic Division. Boston, Toronto, Florida, Detroit, Tampa. Then the playoff cutoff is Ottawa, Montreal, and the Buffalo Sabres.
It's time for a quick break for a word about Manscaped. Fellas, do you want your grooming routine to be a one and done deal? Well, the days of using the same trimmer for your face and your private parts are over, thanks to our friends at Manscaped. They've come up with the ultimate package to keep your hairs trim from 12 to 6. Introducing the Beard and Balls Bundle, featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 and the Beard Hedger, a trimmer for the moneymaker, and another for the boys downstairs. So get 20% off and free shipping using our exclusive code GFP20 at manscaped.com. Lepore, Manscaped coming through in the clutch once again.
Bruno, I can't say I've ever used the same trimmer on my face that I use on my balls, But apparently there are people out there who do, because Manscaped saw the need to do it. So if you are one of those people, don't waste any time. Go get the bundle. Keep that face clean. Keep your balls clean. Manscaped.com, promo code GFP20 for 20% and free shipping.
Gentlemen, don't be a damn farm animal. I mean, for the love of God, if you're using the same razor on your balls as you are on your face, I mean, come on. You're better than that. So head to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping using our exclusive code GFP20. That is code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. It's time for an important message from BetterHelp, a sponsor of today's episode. Sometimes in life, we go through difficult times, whether that's personally, whether that's in a relationship, and your mental health cannot be ignored. And a lot of times, you can't tackle these situations by yourself. You need help. And that's where BetterHelp comes in. They make therapy easier and much less intimidating for a lot of people. BetterHelp lets you have therapy sessions as a phone call, video chat, or even messaging, whatever is most comfortable for you. BetterHelp will connect you with one of 30,000 therapists in their network, and in most cases, you'll be connected with a therapist within 48 hours. So go to betterhelp.com/GFP for 10% off your first month of therapy. Lepore, this service is incredible.
It is incredible. Anthony Bruno, mental health is something that's very serious, and be aware, if you're going through a dark time, you do not have to try to beat this thing alone. There are services out there that can provide you with some great help. BetterHelp is number one when it comes to that. As Bruno mentioned, there are different ways you can get in touch with people, different ways you can contact people. It's all up to you. Go to betterhelp.com/GFP.
Join 4 million people who have used BetterHelp to live healthier and happier lives. So go to betterhelp.com/GFP for 10% off your first month of therapy to connect with a therapist and see if BetterHelp is right for you. Nicely done, Lepore, with your Atlantic Division preview.
Slow clap.
Yeah, I mean, I'm impressed. There's not a ton to disagree with, but we definitely do not have the exact same projections.
Okay.
So who do I think is going to win the Atlantic Division? I'll give you that answer right now.
Let's go, Bruno. Let's go.
This team had a good year last year. Did not live up to expectations as per usual. But despite kind of a turbulent year, dealing with injuries throughout the entire season, they still finished with a really good record. They improved in the offseason on the back end. They still have a lot of the best players in the Eastern Conference. Like when you think about like the best offensive players in the Eastern Conference, this team has a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
This team also, you could argue, upgraded in net potentially. The team I am talking about is your Toronto Maple Leafs.
Let's go, Bruno.
They are going to win the Atlantic Division. You know, it's funny because last year was just kind of like a meh year. Like
terrible.
It was up and down. The team really couldn't find a rhythm. But, in the middle of that, Austin Matthews scored 69 goals and had one of the greatest seasons, in the history of the franchise. William Nylander had a career year. So, like, despite those guys having incredible seasons, it was just a very roller coaster kind of meh, like average sort of season, it felt like. But then you look at the standings at the end of the year, once again, this team over 100 points. They take the Bruins to 7 games in the playoffs. I know, of course, they lost in the first round again, but I think they upgraded on the blue line, bringing in Tanev and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. The goaltending situation, I think you could argue is better. Like Anthony Stolarz last year had one of the best goals saved above expected numbers in the National Hockey League. Now, I know he was playing for the Florida Panthers, who were the best defensive team in the league last year, but I think he's going to make a great tandem with Joseph Woll. Now, can Woll stay healthy? I'm not quite sure. He hasn't proven that yet, but I think the Leafs are going to be pretty solid in net, no matter who's between the pipes on a nightly basis. And I think it's pretty likely that those guys are going to split the starts down the middle. It's going to be close to 40 games each with those two guys. So when I look at the betting odds as well, the Leafs right now, they're actually not the favorite to win the Atlantic Division, but they are second favorites to win the division. Interestingly, Lepore, the Florida Panthers are the favorites to win the Atlantic Division. But just as you said with the Boston Bruins, you think they're the best team. I also disagree with these numbers. Like, I don't think Florida's the best team in the division. I think the Leafs are going to win the division, but I do agree with you that the Boston Bruins are going to be fighting with the Leafs all season long. I don't know how we can ignore this Bruins team at this point. You said it. Like last year, I thought there was a chance they were going to miss the playoffs. I just didn't see it. When I looked at that roster on paper, I said, what the fuck are we looking at here? This forward group sucks. Defensively, okay, they're fine. And in net, they were solid. But I didn't think that was enough to be as good as they were last season. You know, and of course, they lost Bergeron. They lost Krejci. I thought they were going to take a big step back, and they didn't. This offseason, they improved. Lindholm, Zadorov. Like, this is a good team, man. This is a very good team. So I think they are going to finish second in the Atlantic Division. Who do I think is going to come in third? This is where things get interesting because I'm kind of torn here because I do think that the Florida Panthers took a step back. I don't want to say that their D-core was decimated, but they definitely lost some key guys. They lost Anthony Stolarz. So their goaltending situation, despite still having Bobrovsky, might be a little bit shaky next season. But I'm going to give this team the benefit of the doubt just based on the way they play. They play a tight defensive style. And, you know, it's kind of like Boston, right? You think this team is going to take a step back, but I think they're going to find a way to finish in the top three in the Atlantic Division and carry over the success that they had last year, winning the Stanley Cup. So I have Leafs, Bruins, Panthers, top three. I am not as bullish on the Red Wings. I have the Lightning finishing in fourth.
Okay.
It's just kind of a weird Lightning team. I mean, the Stamkos thing, I don't think it's going to affect the team maybe as much as people think it will, because I think that Lightning organization told you how important they think Steven Stamkos is to that operation, because
Fucking right they did.
They had no problem whatsoever walking away from that guy. Who did they bring back? Like, who are they committing to who's the same age as Steven Stamkos? That would be Victor Hedman. So choosing between the two, they clearly told you that Victor Hedman is the guy in terms of, like, he's the more important of, like, the elder statesman on this team. You know, they're bringing back basically the entire core. I know they shipped off Sergachev. They're bringing back McDonough. They're still a very good team.
Really
so
quick,
finishing fourth.
Really quick about Tampa. Have they announced the new captain?
No, I don't believe they have.
Yeah, I don't think they have.
I mean, I think Hedman is a lock.
Really?
I mean, maybe they have and we completely missed it, but I'd be stunned if Hedman is not the captain of this franchise.
Really? No Cooch?
No. Hedman's the guy, man. He's been there. It's like I said, he's the same age as Stamkos. He's been there through it all. Be stunned if he's not the captain.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's my top four. I do agree with your point on the Red Wings. That was interesting what you said about Yzerman being on the hot seat. And you know what? Think about it. Like, he brings in Tarasenko. He brings back Patrick Kane. And you could say, like, these are kind of like interesting moves for a team that's, you know, still kind of on the come up, is trying to steer a little bit younger. They're bringing in these, you know, obviously Kane was there last year, but they're bringing in these veteran guys. So maybe he is feeling a little bit more pressure than meets the eye. Because, you know, maybe if he wasn't feeling as much pressure, they'd kind of stick to, like, no, we're just going all young here. But he is clearly trying to bring in veterans, and he's trying to make the playoffs, considering, as you said, they finished in a tie with the Capitals last year for the last playoff spot and lost out on the tiebreaker. So that's my top five. And then listen, the bottom three, I don't even think it really matters here. I'll give the Senators the benefit of the doubt. Listen, they're going to miss the playoffs again. This team hasn't proven shit. They've now missed the playoffs. What is it? 7 years in a row. I think it's going to be 8 years in a row this coming season. I don't care that they have Linus Ullmark now. They had Korpisalo last year, did not make a lick of a difference. The exact same core is still in place, a core that has not made the playoffs yet. So everyone wants to make fun of the Leafs. I've beaten a dead horse with this, but that core can't even sniff the fucking playoffs. Don't tell me about losing in the first round when your core, who's locked up long term, can't even sniff the Stanley Cup playoffs. So they're going to miss the playoffs again. I think the Sabres are also going to miss the playoffs again, despite me really liking a lot of their young players. But again, I still have to see it to believe it with them. And I think the Montreal Canadiens are still easily the worst team in the division. Right now, they are 75-1 to win the Atlantic Division.
Yeah.
75-1. The Sabres, Lepore, have the second longest odds to win the Atlantic at 13-1.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So it just goes to show what the books think of the Montreal Canadiens. 75-1 to win the Atlantic Division. So
yeah, it's just more the point of the gap between them and the next worst team. Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. So, and I hear what you said about all the young guys with another year under their belt. You know what? I got to say something about Cole Caulfield. Remember all the takes, Lepore? Caulfield is better than Matthews. 50-goal scorer. Cole Caulfield is honestly just not that good.
Well, what's the line? Dude, what's the line? He's the 40-goal scorer who's never scored 40 goals.
The 40-goal scorer who's never scored 30 goals. This dude has never scored 30 goals. Okay, he's played 3 seasons in the league now. 23 goals, 26 goals, 28 goals. Now, his second year, he had 26 and 46 games.
Yeah.
So he was on pace to have a very good season. But then last year, he played all 82 games, scored 28 goals. So I don't want to hear a goddamn thing about Cole Caulfield until this guy scores 30 goals in a season. Anyway, that's the end of my rant. And those are my Atlantic Division standings for next season.
I gotta say it though, Bruno. Okay, so you said Buffalo was 13-1, Montreal was 75-1.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking that bet on Montreal more than I'm taking that bet on Buffalo at 75-1.
To win the division.
Yeah, 75-1. Like I would even say they're like kind of close. Even if Montreal was like 15-1, 21, 75-1. I mean,
it is pretty crazy. Like there is a world where Caulfield finally scores 40 goals. The 40-goal scorer who's never scored 30 goals. There is a world where Suzuki just takes a crazy leap, and Slavkovsky, I mean, he turned it on last season and was proving the doubters wrong. Like there is a world. I'm not going to say they're going to win the division, but if all those guys just pop off, I mean, shit, they could make the playoffs. I don't think it's going to happen, but I can see the world where it could happen.
Yeah.
Anyway, Leafs. Is there anything else you want to mention here about the Leafs? Because I do think that they're kind of being a little underrated.
Yeah, they got better. Like objectively, they got better. I, of course, flirted with the idea of putting them at the top of the division. Maybe I just couldn't bring myself to do that. But we got to get recordings of every season preview we've done since we started the podcast. Have you picked the Leafs to win the division every single time? Maybe.
I think I have. I have. Didn't we both pick the Leafs to win the division last year as well?
We may have. I mean, it's not a hot take. I mean, they've always been up there, but yeah, it's funny. They got better, but none of it matters, really. I just think, like you made the point about last season. Last season, in my life as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, I've never changed my mind on a team so many times. It was like, wow, they're good. Wow, we're shit. We look terrible. Oh, wow, look at this guy's playing well now. Look at these line combinations. We look great. Oh my God, we don't have a goalie. Like, if I felt like every week or two, like the overall take on the Toronto Maple Leafs was changing. But as you said, here it is, a year of inconsistency, injuries, all the bullshit. And they finished with 102 points. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't they lose their last 4 games?
Yeah, they had a rough end of the season.
I'm pretty sure
they did. Despite that, Lepore, even a plus 40 goal differential. The Leafs' goal differential was just 3 goals worse than the Boston Bruins last year.
Yeah. And I'll say this about the goaltending last year, really. How is like save percentage is a team stat. Guys, like now that we can kind of step away and look at what Ilya Samsonov was, crazy athletic, insanely athletic. He had the ability to make the big save, but he's just not good. Like he I'll put it this way. The guy was an anxiety attack because you were so afraid, you almost nervous all the time. And I've always said that's how I judge goalies. Like Carey Price is the ultimate example because he's so calm and so confident. You never feel like anything's gonna beat him, or you're really gonna have to earn something to beat him. Where Samsonov, everything got thrown at the net, just his body language. I looked nervous. I never really believed in the guy. So if Stolarz is healthy, I almost think their goaltending couldn't have gotten worse. Like I thought Samsonov was that bad last year. So can they win the division? Definitely. Will they? I bet no, because it would just be, I mean,
It's definitely the safe bet. I'll admit that.
tick them to come second.
No, for them to not win the division.
Oh, for them to not win the division. Yeah, sure. I mean, you can put it that way. It would be fun to maybe not play a team from the Atlantic and maybe play a Metro team in the first round.
Yeah.
Like,
Can we just play like a not great hockey team in the first round of the playoffs for
or
once
just
in our
not
lives?
Boston, or just not Boston or Florida or Tampa.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, shit. They played the Habs and the Blue Jackets in the first round. It's still shit the bed.
yeah, it doesn't matter.
But it just feels like every year, Boston, Tampa. It's just like the same shit over and over again.
Yeah, and I get these teams can't be bored of us because they fucking beat us every
Oh, they
time.
love playing the Leafs in the first round. They're like, this team
man.
is just going to mentally crumble under the pressure, mentally and physically crumble under the pressure. But no, you said it about Samsonov. I mean, this guy's played 171 games in the NHL, a 904 career save percentage. 904. And I know
That's not
save
bad.
percentage isn't the full story, but come on, man.
That's average. 904 is average now, Bruno. But I don't think he's average. I think that's more the Leafs as a team stat pumping him up. And people say, oh, the Leafs aren't good defensively, but it's weird sometimes. I find the Leafs goalie, sometimes their numbers, like Campbell's an example. His numbers were bad at his best in Toronto. Whatever that means, I don't know exactly, but even the I don't think Samsonov's a true 904 goalie.
Yeah, final thought on the Leafs here. As I said, I think this is an underrated team. Last year, I'll say it again. It was maybe like the weirdest year of the entire Matthews and Marner era. Just a roller coaster season. As you said, Lepore, 1 week, this team is incredible. The next week, oh my God, this team is shit. They still finished with 102 points, a plus 40 goal differential. Their goaltending was all over the place. Mitch Marner had a high ankle sprain at the end of the season. Guys were in and out of the lineup. They got no production from the back end and still finished with 102 points. So I think if they get some more injury luck this year, some better goaltending, the forwards are going to do what they do. And I think people are kind of underrating like Matthew Nyes, for example. Like last year was technically his rookie year. He could take a nice leap here. Mitch Marner, maybe he has like the best year of his career playing in a contract year, right? Like Austin Matthews, I think it's safe to say, is probably going to score 50 plus goals. And then William Nylander is going to do what he does. So the goals are going to be there. It's just, what is this team going to look like on the defensive side of things after I thought they took a step back defensively last year? So I think they're going to have a great season. That's it with the Atlantic Division. Let's move on now to the Metro, Lepore.
Let's do it. Okay.
I don't think this is a very good division.
Really?
I'm not very bullish on several of these teams in the division, honestly. But we'll start with you and your projections for the Metro next season.
Okay. So for the Metro, let's just break it down. I have the team that has the best road jerseys in the National Hockey League, the New York Rangers, finishing at the top of the division yet again. And I do have the Rangers finishing at the top of the conference as far as the regular season goes. I think they'll be the top team, maybe win the President's Trophy again. This is where things get dicey after the Rangers, because there's been a lot of movement of players within the division. A lot of teams, like a lot of movement. So I'm gonna gamble on this one. Because I think they did get better and they got a great new coach. I'm gonna say the New Jersey Devils finished second in the division. Their biggest issue has been goaltending, and they got Markstrom. So we'll see. Similar to Ottawa, this will get exposed now. Be like, no, the Devils are the problem, not the goalie. So they got Markstrom. excitement of a new coach. I have them finishing second. This is where, like, man, I'm second guessing myself. So in third place, and I don't like this team. I really don't like this team. I have the Washington Capitals.
Holy shit. You have the Capitals in third?
The way I see
you
it,
don't have the Hurricanes in the top three.
yeah. The way I see it is the Capitals made the playoffs last year and they got better. They got better, full stop. And I look at Carolina. You could argue the Capitals were one of the most improved teams in the National Hockey League this summer, and Carolina took the biggest hit. So I look at the standings and where they were at. Ovechkin is how many behind the Wayner now? He's like 40 something. So I'm sure he'd love to do it this year. He'll be motivated, or maybe he'll just chill and do it in 2 years. I don't know. But I have the Capitals in third. That's where, and then I have Carolina following up. They lost a lot, man. The Carolina Hurricanes lost Gensel, they lost Brady Shea, they lost Teravainen, they lost Stefan Neeson, they lost who am I forgetting? Pesci. So that's a lot.
That's a lot of good players.
That's a lot. That's half your fucking team, man. So they still have a good coach. They seem to have a good culture there. So I'm not going to say they're going to fall off a cliff, but I have them finishing out of the top three, followed by the Philadelphia Flyers. I think Philly showed us a lot last year in the way that they have guys. They're a team that's annoying to play against and they can win games. Do I think they'll make the playoffs? I don't, but I think they'll have a season where they take even another step with those players. Follow that now again, kind of like the well, as I said with the Atlantic, you have the dog days of the division. Islanders 1 year older of guys who are locked up into their mid 30s, and I have no reason to think they got any better. Then I have the Penguins, and I think it's kind of hard to predict the Penguins to be better. Again, a core that's 1 year older, and these guys in the last couple of years haven't shown us a lot, with the exception of my boy Sid. And in dead last in the division, hot take of the century, the most boring team in the National Hockey League, the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I don't even think I really have to give an explanation as to why I have the Columbus Blue Jackets as dead last in the division and dead last in the conference for that matter.
Okay. I mean, once again, well done with your Metro projections. They're pretty good. I mean, I don't have a lot to poke holes in. But once again, I do not completely agree with your projections. The team that I think is actually going to win the Metro, and again, I won't build too much suspense here. They got a new coach. He used to coach the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think Sheldon Keefe and the New Jersey Devils are going to win the Metro.
Yes, Bruno.
I
don't feel as like bullish though. I don't know, man.
Let's not forget that 2 seasons ago, the New Jersey Devils had 112 points. A plus, they had let me check the exact number here. A plus 65 goal differential. Oof. Okay. One of the best offensive teams in the NHL. Now, think back to last season. Jack Hughes was in and out of the lineup. He missed 20 games. Dougie Hamilton, their number one defenseman, missed 62 games last year. You're not going to win a ton of games when your top defenseman, who gets paid $9 million a year, is missing 62 games. So I know a lot of this comes down to health. It's not just the Devils. It's any team in the league. Like, if the Leafs missed Austin Matthews for half the season, I'm sure they probably wouldn't win the division as I predicted them to, right? Like, this is not that difficult to understand here, but I think if this team is fully healthy, you bring in Sheldon Keefe, who I actually think is a perfect fit for this team. And that's why I think they went so hard after him. It's because you know how he coaches. It's like a very aggressive style in the offensive zone. He loves activating the D. He plays his top guys a ton of minutes. I think it's a perfect fit for this high octane Devils team. Now, in terms of like this team actually doing damage in the playoffs, you could argue that they don't have the size, they don't have the physicality and the experience and down the board and blah, blah, blah. But I think in the regular season, I think they're going to be great. And as you mentioned, probably the biggest difference of all is that they actually have a goalie now in Jacob Markstrom. Now, Markstrom, it's not like he's been like incredible every year for the last 5 years. Like there's been a couple years in between where he hasn't been as good. He's had a down year, followed that up with a good year, another down year. Like he's kind of been a little bit inconsistent, but I think it's safe to say this is the best goalie this team has had in a long time.
Yeah,
like
fair
last year,
enough.
their goaltending was fucking terrible. Like it
Mhm.
was one of the worst goaltending tandems in the National Hockey League. So I really like this team. I think they are going to win the division. In terms of who's going to come in second, again, this is where I kind of share the same opinion as you on the Rangers. Like the Rangers are a good team. I mean, when you look at this roster, you look at what this team has done over the last few years, like it's hard to see this team not finishing top 3 in the Metro. They're just too good on paper. Although what I will say is that they're still not very good at 5-on-5. Like even last year, despite winning the President's Trophy, they only had a +1 goal differential at 5-on-5. That's
Wow.
wild.
Wow. That's an underrated stat, man. That's incredible.
Wild. They had a
Yeah.
+1 goal differential at 5-on-5 and won the President's Trophy.
Shit.
So, despite that, I still like them. I still think they're going to finish top 3. So I have them coming second. Now, in terms of who I think is going to finish third in the division, I completely disagree about the Capitals. Even though the Hurricanes have taken a hit, I can't see this team falling out of the top 3.
Okay.
You said it; they lost a ton of talent, which is definitely concerning. But again, I kind of view this team in the same light as like the Bruins and the Florida Panthers. The style that they play, where it's kind of like it's more of a do it by committee approach, very good defensively, well coached. I have a very tough time seeing the Carolina Hurricanes not finishing in the top 3 in the Metro. So I have the Hurricanes finishing in third. And then I think it's kind of a shit show, to be honest with you. I don't like any of these teams.
Yeah.
I think the Penguins suck. I think the Blue Jackets suck. And now, saying the Penguins suck might be a little harsh, but man, I look at that team on paper. I know they have Sidney Crosby, who's still a phenomenal player, but Jesus, I'm just looking at this team on paper right now. I'm like, my God, man, just not a lot to be excited about. There really isn't.
Poor Kyle.
You know what? I'm gonna say the Islanders finish 4th in the division.
Really?
I'm gonna say the Islanders finish 4th, and then the Penguins and Capitals. Can I say that they're finished with the exact same amount of points?
You
They're
can do
gonna
whatever
finish
you
in a
want,
tie
Bruno.
for 5th in the Metro. The Penguins and Capitals. I'm not bullish on either of those teams. So I'm just gonna say they're gonna come in a tie for 5th, and then I got the Flyers right after that, and the Blue Jackets, who as of right now are 100-1 to win the Metro.
We're even worse than Montreal. I'll ask you about Philly though, Bruno, because Philly finished with what last year? It was like 87 or 88 points. They made the comment before about how like I expect them to take a step. Well, the next step would be the playoffs with that.
87 points, which was they definitely overshot expectations.
Yeah, so I said, okay, I think they're going to take a step. Well, the next step would be the playoffs with that points total. Do I think they'll make the playoffs? No, but I think they'll be in and around there. And when I say take a step, I think it's fair to say they overachieved last year as far as the standings go. But even with them, I mean, you have Pittsburgh ahead of them in your projections. So how much of a drop off do you think Philly's going to take points wise? Like, what do you have a prediction there?
I think Philadelphia overshot expectations last year. They had a -26 goal differential. I look at that team on paper as well. I don't think they're very good. They didn't really do much in the offseason to improve. I think they probably dropped back by like 4 to 6 points. And I think honestly, the Penguins are probably going to finish in that same range like that they did last year. I think I see somewhere between like 85 and 87 points for the Penguins. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Like Lepore, I actually think that 5 teams, and I think you agree here based on what you laid out in your projections. I think 5 teams in the Atlantic are going to make the playoffs. I think only 3 teams in the Metro probably get in.
It could happen. Because even how I'm looking at it, like, okay, I picked the Capitals third to kind of be fun with their improvements and to mix it up a little bit, but the Capitals could end up being bad. So then if they're bad, like Carolina's not going to take, like, as you said, the way they're built, they're not going to take that much of a drop off. So then, yeah, you're kind of reaching its straws now to get one of those teams into the playoffs. It's tough. I just hope it's a war. I mean, because these teams there's so many teams in the East that, like, holy shit, they need to take that next step. And then there's a lot of teams that are like teetering on the past and getting a little worse. So I just hope the last couple weeks of the season are a total mess and fun to watch for a neutral who doesn't have their team involved in all that.
So you said you think the Rangers are going to win the conference. Right now, Lepore, they have the fourth best odds to win the Eastern Conference.
Really?
Yeah, they're at 7-1. I'm kind of torn actually on who I think is going to win the conference. Clearly, it's between the Leafs and the Devils. I think one of those teams is going to win the conference because I have both of them winning their respective divisions. You know what? I'm going to get a little wacky with this and say that the Devils actually win the conference.
Attaboy, Bruno.
They almost won the conference 2 years ago. As of right now, they are actually the betting favorite to win the Eastern Conference at a shade under 5-1. The Panthers are second at 5-1. The Hurricanes are actually third at 6-1. The Rangers are at 7-1. And the Leafs are at plus 750 to win the conference. So I'm going to go with the Devils, man. I think they're a great regular season team similar to the Leafs. They might do fuck all in the playoffs, but screw it. They're going to win the Eastern Conference with Sheldon Keefe, and then Leaf fans are going to be like, "Oh my dear God."
What is funnier? Well, I guess it depends who you'll ask. What would be funnier? Keefe winning the conference with New Jersey as far as the regular season goes, and then getting bounced in the first round, or in the first year taking the Devils all the way to the Cup?
Oh my God.
What's more likely? I'll ask you, what's more likely? Or like taking them like deep, the Eastern Conference Finals. You can only pick one.
I think what's more likely is actually them making a deep run in the playoffs.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit more likely. I could easily see them losing in the first round, but they did win a round 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They did win a playoff round. So it's not like they're like complete like playoff version of virgins, like this, this iteration of the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could get ugly for Leaf fans if that team goes on a run.
Yeah, but that's why I treat New Jersey differently than Ottawa, because you make the same argument. Okay, they both got a goalie. And it's like, well, like I said, it's a team stat, but Jersey's shown us before that they can do it. And you made the point about Hanifin being out. It's their best player, maybe. and he was out like, what, 3/4 of the season? So.
Or Hamilton, you mean?
What'd I say?
Oh, you said Hanifin.
Oh, sorry. Yes, Hamilton. Yeah, my bad. Hamilton's a little better.
But yeah, I mean, those are our projections. Like, are there any final thoughts you want to get off your chest before we wrap this thing up?
No, but I hope we're wrong, man. I hope there's a lot of change. I hope you're right about the Toronto Maple Leafs. But other than that, I just hope Boston finishes at the bottom, Buffalo skyrockets up the standings, the Flyers shock the world, and Torts wins the Jack Adams for Coach of the Year for putting them at the top. Who knows? Maybe Crosby carries the Penguins on his back to the playoffs. I cheer for chaos, man. Other than my Toronto Maple Leafs, I just hope it's fun to watch.
I do hope you guys enjoyed this, because I don't think we just like gave you some obvious answers here in terms of who we think is actually gonna win the division, win the conference, make the playoffs. I think there's some very interesting takes on both sides here. We might end up looking like complete idiots, but something tells me that our takes are actually pretty good on how this is going to play out. So
we'll circle back to this one. It'll be fun.
Yeah, we'll definitely look back on this when we're like 30 games into the season and see how we're trending. But I think the moral of the story here is that the Leafs are underrated. I'm not just saying that because we're a Leafs podcast and I'm a Leaf fan. There's just been so much negativity around this hockey team year after year. And I think people are just like, whatever, fuck this team.
But, I think it is. I think what happens with certain teams, and I mean, we all as fans are guilty of this sometimes. You just get kind of bored. And when I say that, I'm referring to the fans of other teams. So I can see fans of other teams just kind of being bored with the Leafs. So it's, they're going to be worse. So the reaction is, they're not going to be good. And, recency bias of them always getting ousted. So when you make your prediction of them, why would you think they're going to be better? But like you laid it out with, just look at the scoring. It's Nylander, Marner, Matthews, Tavares is still Tavares. They're going to get enough goals to be even better than competitive.
Yeah, the one thing we didn't even bring up is the coaching change. Now, I don't think Berube is going to make like a huge difference, but you never know. I mean, these players are going to look to prove themselves with a new coach. Who knows? Maybe he brings in a slightly new system, new energy, a little bit of a new culture. That could create a big spark. It could create a very minimal spark. We don't know. But it's another variable to kind of take into account here with Craig Berube.
Sure. Yeah, right.
All right. That is going to do it for episode 151 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. If you are a new listener or a longtime listener and you really enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and review on either Apple or Spotify. It does wonders for us. And if you're watching on YouTube and you really enjoyed this episode, then you know what? Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and ring the notification bell while you're at it so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. But for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno. Enjoy the summer, and we will chat very, very soon.
Thanks, everyone.